This week on the OneCast, we're joined by Elite Series Pro Bob Downey. We're going to talk about how he got to the Elites and maybe get some sneaky tricks.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
What is going on, OneCast fans? Welcome back to the OneCast episode, whatever, 74-ish, 75, somewhere up there. We're getting up there. It's super fun. We're happy to be here. We're going to be joined by Elite Series Pro Bob Downey. We're going to talk, obviously, fishing, his career, and, whatever else we get into. But before we do that, as always, we got to shout out those that make this all possible, starting with OneCast Fishing.
So make sure you go over to onecastfishing.com, use the code TheOneCast. It is back on. Or if you missed our Memorial Day sale, that's okay. Still use the code TheOneCast, save a few dollars, snack up on the snagless jigs, weedless nets, long neck hooks, soft plastics. And I did get a message today on that Stinger soft plastics. The PB was caught 9.2.
There we go.
Nice.
Yep.
That's a solid fish right there.
It is.
Speaking of solid, head on over to CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use the code TheOneCast. Those guys hook us up with all the UPF gear. They got neck buffs. They got gloves that just came out. They got awesome UPF shirts that protect your skin from those ultraviolet rays. Is that what they are?
Yeah.
Ultraviolet rays, UV rays.
Ultraviolet.
Right? Ultraviolet. They're ultraviolet. I mean, my neck is burning right now because I didn't wear one the other day, but I'll tell you this, we've been grinding it out in the Fishermen National Tournament Trail this year, and it's absolutely necessary to stay protected. You don't want to get any skin cancer. So check our partners out. They offer great deals if you use our code TheOneCast at CarolinaWatersNC.com.
Yep, and while you're getting that, make sure you protect your eyes. Hobie Eyewear is what we use to protect ours while we're out there on the water. They've got a ton of really, really nice frames. It's stylish if that's your thing. They've got the whole float frame series, which is a lifesaver. If you are to drop your glasses in the water, there's no more losing. They know that $100+ pair of glasses, but you don't have to pay $100+ if you use the link in the description or in our link tree. You can click on and get to it anywhere that we have it posted. You'll save 15% off your order. Go grab you some Hobie Eyewear. I highly recommend it. It's made a huge difference, I believe, in our success this year because we've had complete confidence in our gear. And when you're confident in your gear, you fish confident and things seem to go right. So make sure you head over to Hobie Eyewear, check them out, and grab you some of those sweet glasses.
We know our travel partners, Mikey and Nick, snagged up, a few pairs each after this last tournament, which we'll talk about at some point later on. But, it's absolutely key to make sure that you protect your eyes, just like Pete said. And speaking of linked trees, let's talk about trees, not those kind of trees. Ben, don't be laughing at me. We're talking about property. If you guys are in the market in the Sandhills region of North Carolina and you're looking for a good property broker, you can hit our buddy Eric Schwind up at Mossy Oak Properties. Eric serves the Sandhills region. He's got tons of land, both vacant land and land with residential locations on it. You can shoot him a message or give him a call at 936-494-9686 or send him one of those professional emails at ESCHWIND@mossyoakproperties.com. Eric is going to get you hooked up with your little slice of paradise.
Make sure when you send that, in the title would be the best. Probably you put in there catfishing isn't real fishing. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm looking forward to getting out with him this year. He's invited us several times. We just haven't been able to make it work. So
I think we're a little bit more free now.
Yeah. We're a little bit more free. So if you listen to the last episode, Trey and I had probably the most pressure we've had ever in tournament fishing. We went into the last points tournament of the season with a 7-point lead for AOI or points champion, whatever you want to call it. With the Fishers of Men, if you win your division, you get an automatic berth into the national championship. If you listen to our last episode, we had to go out there and do our job, and we went out there and did our job. We locked that down. So we are qualified for the national championship, which is in April on Lake Murray, April of next year. So looking forward to that. We'll go into that tournament like we have with everyone, because I know you guys like to hear our shenanigans. And of course there were shenanigans in this one.
100,000.
These ones didn't involve fish catches this time, luckily, but we had to fight through some adversity and things went down. So we'll talk about that on a future episode. I know everybody wants to hear about weights and fish. There was weights and fish again this time in the bass fishing world. That guy's in jail. So we're not going to give him any more credit than or any more attention or whatever than what he's already gotten, because yeah, those people don't deserve it. But somebody decided to put weights and bass in a tournament. They got caught, and now they're in jail. So don't cheat.
Yeah, that lesson should have been learned fairly easily the last year. But hey, when there's money on the line, people are going to do what they're going to do.
People do some crazy things. So was there anything else news-wise? Corbershley won the NPFL, $100,000 payday. He got that shield.
Yeah, and he's going to be in
studio in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Probably 2 or 3 weeks. We'll have an episode with him in studio here.
And he's bringing the shield. And he told me he wasn't allowed unless he did.
Yeah. You might want to check the YouTube one out for that one because he's going to have that. We're going to hopefully have that shield on prominent display. But it might be.
We're going to have to put it back here somewhere. Like we'll figure it out. But pretty cool that. And then he came out and he won our Fishers and Men tournament on his home lake where he absolutely dominated.
29 pounds almost.
With almost 29 pounds. So congrats to Mike. He's definitely on a streak, man. He's on a hot streak, and glad to see good people, good things coming to good people and a guy that does things right. But we'll talk about that more when we get him on. Elite event.
I think
that was over.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah, I think that was all we had to cover. Oh, heavy hitters, Jordan Lee. Congratulations. Went down there and whacked a pile of fish on a frog on Toho. Got to see him yell at somebody that came into his area. I don't know who it was.
I'll tell you this. Jordan posted a video about, some modifications that he does to the frog, right? And there's
when he's fishing heavy grass.
Yeah, heavy grass or, cheese mats and stuff like he was fishing on Toho. And, there's a lot of people like, why are you leaking that secret out? And it's like, are there really any secrets anymore? And maybe Bob will spill some for us, for the fans and stuff. But, congratulations to Jordan. He's an absolute hammer. And I love seeing him back on the Bassmaster series for sure.
All right. Speaking of hammers, we're about to bring another one on with us. Bob's been, he qualified in 2019 to the elites through, I'll probably get this wrong, but it was I don't remember what they called the division, the Central Opens division. He won one down there on Grand Lake, qualified for the elite. So he's been there now for a few years. He's got 3 Bassmaster Classic appearances. What I thought, Bob, he can hear this. He's not in here yet. I'm going to flatter him a little bit, I hope, but he's kind of one of those under the radar guys. 48 tournaments, right? 41 times in the money. 41. So extremely consistent.
Yes.
I think he's got 21 top 20s out of those 48. So a heck of an angler, really good guy, had a ton of fun down there with him. I did ride around with him as a marshal. He is not the one that I got to check to have his boat. We'll get that out of the way right off the bat so that everybody knows. You can probably figure out who it was now because some people know. But if you don't, then you'll find out next week.
Yeah, the other person also runs.
But that was going through my head all day today. Like, how do I not? But it's pretty obvious at this point. So, Bob, we're going to bring Bob on. And, looking forward to this one.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Not much. I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Man, we're chilling in North Carolina and, that good humid weather. How's it up? You're up in Minnesota right now, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of north central Minnesota, and we're right in the middle of our spring season. It's 70 degrees today and beautiful, and the fish are, up shallow for the most part. The southern part of the state, they're kind of spawning or done spawning, but we're kind of right in the middle of our spawn right now.
Man, well, we definitely appreciate you taking the time to, have a conversation, have a show with us when you could be out there whacking those fish off the bed, probably. So,
yeah, no problem. No problem.
While they're shallow, because our fish aren't shallow anymore. It makes me sad.
Yeah, the Memorial Day's here now, so that means the switch got flipped down here in the south. So it's about 90% humidity at 6 a.m. at 80 degrees, and all those fish have moved off to 15, 20, 25 foot, it seems like.
Yeah.
You'll get to experience some of that here in a couple of weeks when you go down to good old Alabama. You have back-to-back events in Alabama, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we got a weird week break in between those 2 events, but yeah, essentially they're almost back-to-back. And June in Alabama, I'm going to be sweating a lot. Not really looking forward to the heat.
His skin's going to be crawling off there.
Yeah.
I can't think of the last time bass went down south in June.
Yeah,
maybe a Gunnersville event or something in Tennessee, but or Alabama.
Well, last year we went to the Speen River last year.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty miserable.
Why do they call that Orange, Texas? Because you get so burnt when you're down there?
Probably.
If you ever want to go viral, just call the Sabine River the Sabine. People will lose their minds. Trust me, I do it all the time. The old Sabine River down there. But that's enough about that. there's some cool stuff that you've got to experience in your career fishing. And we're going to let you kind of talk about how I got into it. But something I didn't know that I just found out the other day was in 2006, you fished a pro-am and got paired up with Seth Fighter, and you guys went out there and won it. And I thought that was pretty cool. So talk to us about how you got into tournament fishing and then kind of your journey to the Elite Series and into BASS.
Yeah, I started fishing at an extremely young age. I grew up in a family, both my mom's side and dad's side fished a lot. So I spent a lot of time on the water as a young kid. And then I got into tournament fishing kind of in my early teenage years, I'd say. I was in high school, 14, 15 years old, and started tournament fishing in junior clubs at the time. They didn't really have high school leagues like they do now, but they had junior Bassmasters. And so that's what I started doing around the house here in Minnesota. And that's really where I got the bug for it. I didn't win my first event, but came close, took second, and it kind of lit a fire under me to really just pursue it. And it was always a dream to compete on a national level. I went to college and fished for the University of Iowa, and that kind of gave me experience a little bit around the country a bit and showed me fisheries outside of our natural lakes here in Minnesota that I was so used to fishing growing up. But after college, I started working and kind of put that dream on the back burner a bit. But in 2019, the Opens came to the Mississippi River for one event, and that kind of sparked my interest in wanting to do at least the Mississippi River event and fish that one. And then I ultimately fished the whole season and got fortunate. I had one of those crazy years where everything went right, the stars aligned, and that year they had 4 tournaments in the Central Opens and happened to do well in all 4 of them, and ended up winning the last one. So that qualified me for the Classic as well as the Elite Series at the same time. So kind of, progression through the ranks, like a lot of people come up, started in high school, fished in college, fished locally a lot for about 8 to 9 years prior to qualifying for the Elite Series. Just spent a lot of time on the water as much as I possibly could. And super fortunate to be here today.
What did they think about the Minnesota Gopher going down there and laying waste in Oklahoma and winning that event?
I don't know. I guess the Oklahoma guys probably didn't love it, but I don't know. I fished shallow wood all week in that event, and we do that a lot on the river back home. So I felt really comfortable just flipping willows and buckbrush, and it was a tough bite. It was late, like mid to late September, if I remember right, maybe early to mid September. So super hot. You're getting 5 to 7, 8 bites a day, and but I have a lot of confidence doing that. And I had some good bites in practice, so I kind of just stuck with it and got pretty fortunate that pattern held throughout the event.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and we talk about all the time in fishing how much, we call it luck, fortunate. Obviously, we, as anglers, we do everything we can to put ourselves in those positions to have that. But, man, when it's your time, like, you always hear guys finish second, third. They're right there. It's like, it just wasn't my time. Like, how do you cope with that? It just wasn't my time. And when it's your time, like you said, the stars aligned. You jumped into the Opens one year, probably not been done by a lot of people. Just decide, hey, I'm gonna see what this is about and get on one of those runs. But when you're fishing with confidence, right?
Yeah, it was definitely one of those unexplainable things, especially the last one at Grand Lake. I fully believe in what you said there, that when it's your time, it's your time. I think I had to finish in the top 3 or 4 in that tournament to make the Elite Series. Wow. So, to go and win it, qualify for the Classic, because that was a win and you're in deal, and then the Elites at the same time. And I had several fish that, if you guys, and I'm sure you've flipped enough shallow wood over the years that that you don't land every one of those fish. Mm-hmm. And I think I lost one fish all week that really mattered. And so there were times where you'd swing on one and they'd be stuck down in that bush, and you just hold pressure and somehow they swam out of there instead of getting off. So there were a few scenarios like that. And I don't really know why it was my time, but feel super fortunate to have the opportunity and to try and continue to make a career out of it, because I don't look at myself as being much better than some of the best local anglers in our area or across the country. But for some reason I was given an opportunity to try and do it, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said in your intro, obviously you've proven that it's not just your local angle. I mean, you're fishing every week against 100 plus or every tournament against 100 plus of the best in the business. And you've 48 tournaments, 41 of them you've been in the money. You've 21 top 20s. You finished second in 2022. I know down there on St. John's. I think that was when John won that one. And I remember watching that live, and I was like cheering for the Northern guy, but I know John, personally, and it's like either one of these two dudes are good. You can tell are good people. Like, yeah, you'd be happy, like good guys win. It's just one of those things. Like you said, we've talked about it. So everybody listening, like when it's meant to be, it'll be, some of the stories you've heard Trey and I talk about this season. If you're one of our listeners, like those fish just stay pegged when it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Crazy things happen. Things you don't expect to happen, things that might never happen again. And you just got to roll with it. So you qualified. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what I think is really, really cool is that you just jumped in the open for 1 year just for your central event. And I know things have changed now with the EQ series, and there's pros and cons of that. I'm not going to get into that here, but it's pretty cool to see you get in those 4 events, you do well enough, you win one, you make the elites, but you're a hammer enough that you've made 2 additional Bassmaster Classics, right? You've got all those top 10, the top 20s, and Pete rattled off all the numbers. Like, you can fish all over this country, and it just goes to show, how much talent there is. And sometimes folks just need to, if you think you have a little bit of the dream, and just go out there and try it, because you don't know when the stars might align and your dream might come true.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think getting through the opens is kind of the biggest hurdle, and that's an absolute gauntlet, and it's becoming more of a gauntlet now. But I guess if you have aspirations to try and do it, take that leap of faith. I think a lot of us are hesitant to do it because maybe we lack confidence in our abilities. And, that was certainly me when I started the Elite Series, for sure. I wasn't sure if I could compete with these guys. And so part of it is just, taking that leap to do it. And you may succeed, you may not succeed, but at least that you gave it a shot anyways.
Well, that's right.
When you got to the elites, and you just mentioned that you didn't feel confident there, what was that like, making that jump? And then when did it kind of click, like, okay, no, I belong here. Like I can hang with these guys every single tournament almost.
Yeah, I think, right away, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to compete with the guys at all. I think through the opens, I kind of signed up and didn't really tell many people that I was doing it. And you can kind of fly under the radar a little bit through the opens. And there's eyeballs keeping an eye on what's going on there, but not like at the elite level. And so when you get to that elite level, all of a sudden you start to feel that pressure a little bit more. Like, okay, I made it. I want to stay here. I want to prove to people that I can stay here, but I don't know if I can do it myself. And that showed through the first few events. The first event on the St. John's River, I completely bombed, totally spun out on day 2. But it taught me a lot. It taught me to keep my head in these events, no matter how tough it is, because you never know when something's going to happen at the end of the day. And that's something I knew from fishing tournaments for a long time, but you get at a different level and the mental side of it kind of clicks up a notch. And so I think throughout that first year, I learned a lot. I made a top 10 at the end of that year on Gunnersville. That was the COVID year where our schedule kind of got pushed back into the fall. And I ended up making a top 10 punching grass on Gunnersville, which is something I love to do here in Minnesota. And that gave me confidence that I can, I can at least compete with them doing something in my wheelhouse. And now I've got to figure out how to compete consistently. And I think the last 2 years making the Classic has helped my confidence a lot to know that I can stay consistent throughout a season enough to make a Classic. There's certainly times I'm still going to bomb, but I feel like I'm at a point now where if I put the work in, and I'd like to be an organized person. I feel like if I'm on top of that and I'm on top of my research before these events, there's going to be times I'm going to miss it and I'm still going to bomb for sure. But I feel like I can at least compete, with these guys now on a little bit more consistent basis.
So
hold on real quick.
Go ahead.
I don't know what you're going to ask, but we're kind of at a point where I want to make sure we ask this. Do you feel like, I don't know, how many did you fish 4 years in college, or how long did you do your college deal?
Yeah, all 4 years.
Do you feel like that prepared you nationally? Did you feel like you got enough experience outside of just the North? Because I know, we're friends with Destin, who qualified through the Northern Opens and spent a lot of time fishing up there. Heck of an angler, even at the elite, had top tens, all that. But he struggled when you got to the South, because it's completely. We say it all the time, and you can confirm it or not. I think it's easy to catch a fish up north. You can go fish grasslines. It's just so much different between the North and the South, right? So do you feel like that college experience prepared you better to go to some of these lakes in different states and different areas of the country?
Yep. College 100% prepared me. It gave me an idea of what some of these reservoirs look like that don't have a blade of grass in it.
Yeah,
it taught me how to grind for 5 bites. Here in Minnesota, if you don't have a limit in the first hour and a half, like you're doing something wrong. Like it's just, you catch limits here in the North. In the South, you're trying, a lot of times you're getting 5 to 8, 9, 10 bites a day. In a lot of places, there's certain lakes like Murray is a decent lake where you're getting a few more bites a day, but it taught me how to grind through an event for 5 bites. So the mental side of it was a big deal. It taught me how to travel across the country and just be prepared, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong on the road that if you're not prepared for that, it can throw you off mentally for the event before you even get there. So dealing with old bass boats where you're constantly breaking down or you're constantly dealing with trailer issues, it kind of taught me how to work through those things and be better prepared in the future on how to travel. So it helped quite a bit for sure.
While we're on the preparation topic, one of the big things that you talk about logistics and then fish in different regions and stuff like that, but let's talk about the social media, the communication, marketing, and sales side of it. When you get into the Elite Series, like in the Opens or any other regional tournaments and stuff, you weigh your fish and you leave. You weigh your fish and leave. You might say a couple things on stage, whatever. But now that you're in the national spotlight, how prepared were you for sponsors, making obligations for you and social media and all these other things that really do put a lot of pressure on you guys at the national level to say, hey, I need you to put a Sims hat on and a Rapala shirt and do this, right? Like how prepared was that?
So from a fishing industry standpoint and sponsor wise, you could probably say I wasn't prepared at all. But that was partly on purpose. Like I had a full-time job. I was, that's where I made my income prior to fishing the Elite Series. That job allowed me to fish locally. It allowed me to fish the Opens stress-free without financial concern. So I didn't put a lot of effort into sponsor relationships prior to qualifying for the Elite Series by choice. Now, when I qualified, I realized that had to become a major part of what I do to make a career out of it. And so then I put a lot of effort into it. You're especially, your rookie year is probably where the most legwork happens in terms of building those relationships, trying to make connections, really doing whatever you have to do to make connections with the companies that you believe in. Hopefully you get to work with them. And I would say my job prior to qualifying for the Elite Series prepared me a lot in making those connections. So I worked in sales. I still do it to a small extent, but I was in contact with small business owners all day, every day in my prior job. So I knew how to talk to companies. I knew how to, put contracts together, negotiate contracts, try and sell our product to them. And so a lot of that prepared me to sell myself to, fishing industry companies. It's just a different product. I was selling something different. Now I'm selling kind of my own value to those companies. So it's a huge deal. But to say I was prepared for it in the fishing industry side prior to qualifying for the elites wouldn't be true. I kind of chose not to do that, and I chose more so to focus on like doing the best I could to be a better tournament angler first.
For our high school anglers that are listening to this, and then those getting ready to move on to college, like we talked about it before, like, ECU here in North Carolina, NC State has a team. There's teams all over the place.
Yeah, they all do, yeah.
Is that something I honestly don't know. Is that something that they talk about in college level angling from your understanding is sponsorship relations and things like that?
Yeah, they do. I think every school handles it a little bit differently. When I was at the University of Iowa, we had sponsors, but it was kind of loose. It was like, we'd maybe get some product discounts. We didn't really have a great connection with the company, but it maybe was a relationship that was built prior to when I was even there. So from our standpoint at Iowa, it was fine. It helped a little bit. It wasn't like paid contracts necessarily. But I do think there's certain colleges throughout the country that's a big part of what they do. Especially these anglers these days going through those programs. I think they're kind of grooming them to, if they want to be a national touring pro, they're grooming them in all aspects, along with the sponsor side. So, I think it's becoming a bigger deal at the college level. I get the questions a lot from high school anglers. My kind of generic response is always, be sure that if this is what you want to pursue, you got to be able to catch bass and compete, number one. If you can't do that, you don't have a platform to promote sponsors.
Right. Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. That's kind of changing with social media. There's more and more platforms for non-touring anglers. But, if you want to be a touring angler and make a career at it, you got to be able to catch fish first. And then once you get there, you got to be able to work hard for your sponsors.
Yeah. I like how you put that a few minutes ago about selling yourself, because when I think it's great for folks out there to understand that when you're going to businesses, Bob, or any angler, right? You become the product, right? You have to bring value, right? Some type of value to whatever company you're seeking that sponsorship or support from, and so you really got to sell yourself. And right, catching fish is obviously like the baseline, right? But it's all the other stuff of, and how are you going to bring value to that company? And of course, of negotiations, right? All that stuff is, fungible or negotiable, really, but situational, situational, however you want to say it. But like you as the angler have to become the product in that scenario.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to be able to look at it more as a partnership, and that you are working for them, not the other way around. Like, it's not so much what they can provide for you. It's what you can do for them is what you should be most concerned about. And then the other stuff will hopefully fall into place over time. But yeah, you've got to work hard for them. You're essentially, you're a paid employee of those companies that you're working for. And, if you don't do a good job at any other company, you're not going to get paid or you're going to get fired. So you can't just be lazy and expect that they're just going to pay you and you sit around and do nothing. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's way more than maybe most people realize from the outside looking in, but it's for me, I really enjoy it. Like half of today I was out on the water filming with a company that has an online product, and we're just shooting a bunch of content. And for me, that it's work, but it's fun work for me.
They're like, Bob, go catch some fish.
Yeah.
So before, because I definitely want to talk some fishing stuff, but the last thing I want to ask is, as the industry has grown significantly with high school fishing and college fishing, and now the EQs is basically like a miniature version of the Elite Series and the Toyota Series, the Invitationals and the MPFL and all this stuff. You got a lot, and then all the other national trails that aren't really mentioned a lot. You have a significant amount of anglers competing over a very small pie when it comes to resources within the industry. We're not talking non-endemics here, but how since your birth into the Elite Series, how much has it changed as far as like competing with other anglers to get a business deal with fishing industry vendors and businesses?
Yeah, I think it's probably become a little harder just because more and more people are wanting to do it. And I don't blame them. It's, I think, a factor of the high school programs and the college programs. And now with the Bassmaster EQs going on, that'll be interesting to see how long that really stays popular. But it certainly has become, it's been popular the last couple of years. So, yeah, it's, there's three. I mean, the MPFL is certainly a reputable league now. And so there's anglers on that level that are vying for sponsor dollars too. So, yeah, it's definitely spread out among a bunch of us. But, ultimately, if you can really build the relationships with people that are at those companies and you work hard for them, I don't feel like I in jeopardy of losing those contracts as long as I work hard. Now there certainly can be changes within the economy and the industry, and I think we've kind of seen that within the last year a little bit, that you're doing all you can for your sponsors, but it's just part of business too that they're going to make cuts at times, and those are unfortunate circumstances and situations for sure. But you also have to understand that that's just business sometimes, and those things happen too.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Like with all the different platforms, while it may seem like everyone is competing over the same resources, it's also a great opportunity for all these businesses because they have so many other platforms that they can market to different target audiences, right? So yeah, you talked about the MPFL, the EQs, the Elite Series, the Toyota Series, all these things. There's tons of different people that they can market to because there's loyal followers for each single one of those platforms. But yeah, let's talk some fishing. If you guys want to get into
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
You want me to start it?
Yeah.
So
you've got questions burning.
So, I mean, like, I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan originally. So we obviously know the big name that comes out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. But when you look at the North, you got Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, all those others. Sorry, I was looking at I don't know if my daughter's driving. She just got a permit today.
Did she hit Ben's truck?
I thought you just.
If she didn't hit Ben's truck, it's probably
no, we're good.
I just thought you ran out of states to
No. But coming from the North, like and I think Mercer always talks about it too, like the Johnson brothers and Gussie and stuff coming from Canada. What is it about the Northern anglers, in your opinion, that really breeds success throughout the country? East all the way to the North, but what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because we're seeing more and more of it these days than we ever have in the past. Prior to the last probably 10 years, you had Ike and Ellie and KBD, and they were kind of the two from the North that I can remember there's Jim Moynes from Minnesota. He's been doing it for a long time. I think we've got a diverse set of fisheries for sure. We've got the smallmouth factor, which, Bassmaster and Major League Fishing are, that's part of their schedule every year now. 15, 20 years ago, I don't know if that was necessarily an annual pilgrimage to New York like they do now. So that certainly helps for 2, if not sometimes 3 events out of the year. So that's a third or, a little less than a third of our season, where a lot of the northern anglers are kind of in their wheelhouse. But, I'd say diverse fisheries, the smallmouth deal, and it just seems to be growing in popularity in the north, and where you had previously a lot of multi-species anglers in the north or the Midwest, walleye, muskie, panfish, pike, all these things. Now these younger kids are primarily focused on bass, it seems like. And so it's kind of a numbers deal, I think. Prior to 10 years ago, there was a handful of people from the north that were hardcore bass anglers that maybe would make the jump to the national level. But now you've got a younger group of anglers that have focused on bass for a long time. So your percentage of the anglers to draw from is much greater now. So it's almost kind of like a given that, well, there's going to be a few of them that are going to make it to that national level, just because there's so many more of us chasing bass up here. Especially I see it in Minnesota and Wisconsin more so than anywhere else. I mean, growing up, we're a walleye state, and we still kind of are a walleye state. But the emergence of this high school fishing programs is just insanely impacting the amount of kids that are chasing bass now.
How big of a Tom Mansour fan are you?
I don't mind Tom. I don't know him real well, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's a heck of an angler, that's for sure.
I just love the fact they did a Bass Cave episode on him a long time ago, and he went through his house. You saw that?
Yeah, that was cool.
Golly, he's got so many.
I need all those totes full of
yeah. Like Tom Mansour, I used to watch him back in the FLW days, and man, he's just living his best life with all his OG tackle and stuff like that. So got to get my hand on some of his swim jigs and stuff. So but anyway, sorry, I interrupt you guys.
No, I was going to agree with Bob 100%. I think the popularity of the sport and the increase the last 10 or 15 years. I mean, think about it from a high school or college perspective. You want to go fish, and even if it's a multi-species, at least with bass fishing, right? You're always moving around. There's a million different ways to catch fish. And I'm not nearly as experienced. I really have no walleye fishing, but even the other species, right? I know there's a lot of techniques you can use, but there's a lot of trolling involved and a lot of different, I don't know if it's as active.
No.
Kind
There's
of.
nothing fun about catching walleye. They're good to eat. I love eating them, but I did not like fishing.
What is it like? Catching a bag of socks?
Pretty much like reeling in a
But,
bag of socks, yeah.
So that, and then two, I think the other big factor is that is probably a lot of the grass that's up there.
Yeah.
Because, here in North Carolina, going all, from this latitude west, there's not a lot of grass. I know there was some eelgrass and stuff like Tennessee River and all, but there's a lot of places in the country that does not have grass.
Yeah.
But when you go down to Florida, in the southern,
grass.
Way down there, you've got grass, and there's always a couple events on the major tours that are down south and those grass type of lakes. And that's why I think we've seen the northern guys. I remember that was it Corey Johnson? Which Johnson brother won the Harris chain like 2016 or 17?
I think it was Chris.
Chris, yeah. Because Corey just won his, right? Yeah. So Chris, so guys coming from Canada catching them on a jerkbait and hydrilla in the middle of the lake. That's that's not typical Florida fishing.
Right. Yeah. No, the grass is definitely a big deal. On Murray this year, there's a lot of grass in Murray for people that aren't familiar with that lake, and it wasn't always like that, but it's there now. And I was throwing a drop shot a lot around grass, and that's what I grew up doing here in Minnesota. And most people are chasing herring eating fish, and I was throwing a drop shot around grass, and I felt really comfortable doing it. One other thing I forgot to mention is just our quality of fisheries up here. We're able to dial in that technique pretty quick up here. Like if you've never thrown a drop shot and you don't have any confidence in it, you can go to most of our lakes throughout the state, and within a couple days, you're going to figure out what hook you need to be using, what line you need to be using, what rod, how to set the hook on those fish, how to land them, how to be the most efficient with your weight sizes. And you can really dial in techniques, I would argue, faster here than maybe most places around the country, because you're getting a lot of feedback. You're getting a lot of bites. You can torture test your equipment to the point where the best hook, the best line, the best rod for that technique. And I think that plays a big role here too.
Yeah, it's hard to go like 5 bites a day on lakes and be like, am I doing something right or wrong when I'm getting so few? I do like that you mentioned the drop shot on Murray, because years ago I had a little club classic tournament down there. It was on Murray. Now the grass is not like it is now. It was about 4 inches tall, but I ended up placing in that tournament by ripping a drop shot through that 4 inches of grass and managed to get enough keepers that way to catch it, to cash a check for the classic. But the grass now is just exploded because it was not like that then. But
there's a ton of grass.
Well, we're going to need to pick Bob's brain on that stuff because we got a national championship. We don't have an information room, so you're welcome. but coming down, like, you learned a lot. You're able to, and I really like that term that you coined, and Bob coined that term, torture test your equipment. But let's talk about your learning experience too, because, we do a lot of things differently in the South, or maybe they just do some things that you weren't used to. What are some of the biggest things that you've learned technique-wise that you've put in your arsenal now to make you more successful on the leads? Or is there anything that you've had to learn?
Yeah, I think just throwing a lot more winding baits in the South, like crankbaits, spinner baits, buzzbait, chatterbait, and those are extremely effective down south. We catch them on them up here in the Midwest, but we've got so many pike in most of our lakes that you're dealing with a lot of pike when you're throwing those reaction style baits. So we grew up fishing slower. Like I said, a drop shot, a Texas rig on a grass line. You might be punching pads or throwing a frog up in pads, but you throw a crankbait around a grass line, unless you're really dialed into a school of bass, you're going to catch a pile of pike each day. So we just don't do it as much. And I don't know if part of that is because we don't have shad in our lakes. We have shad on the Mississippi River, and so you can do it there effectively. But there's shad in a lot of these southern bodies of water, and I think the bass are just more accustomed to eating winding baits. And what's nice is when you get a bite on a chatterbait on Gunnersville, it's a bass. It's not a pike. And so I would say getting more confidence and being a little more efficient with crankbaits and chatterbait and those in a spinnerbait. Like I said, we catch them on those up here, but it's not like my go-to. If I'm in a tournament, a lot of times I'm, soaking a Texas rig on a grass line in the summertime, or I might be dragging a Carolina rig on a rock pile, and you might throw a deep diving crankbait on the rock pile. But so just maybe moving faster, covering more water, and just learning to be a little bit more efficient with those techniques.
Maybe that's the key to the northern success throughout the country, though, is we always talk about, like, if you think you're going slow, you're probably not going slow enough, right? Put your hand in your pocket, eat a sandwich, and soak that drop shot, soak that wacky worm, whatever the case may be. And maybe that's part of the key, right? Is like you got to fish slow because you're not trying to catch a bunch of 45-inch northern pike. So you're soaking that drop shot as long as you can for some smallers or largemouth. Maybe that's it. Maybe we just unlocked northern success.
Well, I'm from the north. I do not fish slow. Good
He
at all.
does. Pete is right. He is a power fisherman, but I have seen him put his hands in his pocket.
But like Bob said, I spent a lot of time on the Great Lakes, like on Erie, and where we had pike on Erie, but typically we were fishing for smallmouth, and the pike weren't around, because they were out on those deeper rock piles. They were offshore. You weren't really fishing the grass lines because if you're fishing a derby on Erie, you're not going to win it with green fish. Right. You're just not, because you're going to fish against Destin or Dave Lefebvre or somebody that knows where you can find them, and they're going to go catch 25 plus pounds of smallmouth. And a big largemouth bag, you might have 14 or 15 pounds. So it's kind of like we see when we went to you guys go to the St. Lawrence. Like, there's guys that were comfortable going out fishing the big water, and they did well and brought back monster bags. Guys that aren't as comfortable doing that and kind of stayed in the river area struggled. It's just not the way you're going to win. But and we fished the river a lot. So I was right on the Ohio River, and that was kind of like you were saying, the Mississippi. You could throw those moving baits because while there was some pike and stuff around, you didn't have to deal with as much as you do in a Mill Lacs or somewhere with the grass and all that. Yeah. And Michigan, the same. Every pond in Michigan's full of them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and there's probably shad in that Ohio River too. And our natural lake fish, they're bluegill eaters for the most part. You get, they'll eat crawfish and frogs, and there's a minnow population too, but a lot of bluegill eaters, and bluegills kind of they're not swimming around fast like a group of shad is so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just sit there.
So you're living in Minnesota. You're obviously fishing the elites. Do you and your family have any aspirations of moving, or are you guys going to stay in Minnesota?
We don't really plan to move at this point. It does make for some longer drives for sure, and it's harder. Like this Alabama swing we got coming up, we got a week break in between, and with a little baby at home, I kind of want to get home, so it makes it tougher in those situations. But I love it up here. Our fishing's so good in the summertime. We deal with winters, pretty harsh winters. I'm kind of spoiled now with the Elite Series. I get to leave usually in early February, so I kind of can make it through the winters fine. But no, we really like it here. You just kind of got to gut it out through some longer drives at times.
Are you an ice fisherman?
Not really. No.
we haven't met a bass guy from the north yet that ice fishes.
Yeah, a little bit. If I have, if I wasn't fishing the Elite Series, I probably would do it more. But I stay pretty busy through the winter, and I like to hunt in the fall up until the end of the year. So
I'll say with shows and everything, you stay pretty on the road. We know how that show season grind goes from end of November through when the season kicks off and kind of end of February. You're gone traveling to shows. Like you said, you got to work for those folks that are paying the bill for you and providing you with some income. So, you do miss out on the winter a little bit, which I'm sure, like you said, you're super disappointed in. But
Minnesota winters.
So I want to talk about let's talk law of recency. So you just got done, hammering the fish on Lake Murray, which is a very unique fishery, right? Blueback herring lake, largemouth only, I believe, right?
Yeah, no spots yet.
Minus some carp probably or whatever, catfish and stuff like that. But talk to us about your experience on blueback herring lakes. And, Pete was talking about, he wasn't spilling the juice, but he was talking about some unique things that, guys do on the Elite Series on a blueback herring lake like Lake Murray. Talk to us about your method on tackling a blueback herring lake this time of year.
Yeah, so for me, I have very little experience doing it. That's kind of one reason I've fished a drop shot a lot. But what I have learned is, the obvious looking spots is typically where those fish are actually living. So it's not anything that's like super secret or sneaky. A lot of it's the shallow, long tapering points. They're there. Those fish are living there. They get a lot of pressure now on Murray, so there's certain baits you can throw that are maybe a little sneakier. Nothing that probably is too surprising. Little minnow baits. Obviously, the fluke the top water deal is a thing, especially if you know where they're sitting on those points. A wacky rig is actually a really, really good bait down there on those areas. But, for me, it's a matter of moving around quite a bit. I think there are certain areas like, you might find a point like Lee Livesey found, and you might just sit there the whole tournament. But that's not the case across the entire lake. There's maybe a half dozen points on the lake at a given time where you can just sit there all day long. So for me, it was a matter of covering a bunch of water kind of first thing in the morning. But I really did most of my damage with a drop shot in the afternoon in terms of my really bumping up my weight. But yeah, shallow, long tapering points, your typical minnow, shad style lures, and it's kind of like smallmouth fishing a little bit. Keep moving until you run into them. There's fish biting somewhere, and if you come across the right point at the right time, you can get healthy in a hurry. And so it's really a matter of just continuing to cover a bunch of water until that happens.
What have you found as your most on a blueback herring lake like that? What is the most successful top water bait that you can throw?
There's so many of them out there, and I'm not an expert on it, but I like to throw the ones that spit quite a bit, but that shows maybe how little I know, because then I talked to Patrick Walters, and he's like, yeah, you got to throw the ones that are like kind of quieter. So that was something I think I certainly missed. Like the I'm a skimmer, I think, is one of those that's a little bit quieter. Those are pretty difficult to find these days. But for me, I was actually throwing Rapala Jowler, which is coming out of the ICAST this year. It's similar, if you guys are familiar, to like a Shower Blows or an IMA. I think it's the IMA Little Stick. The ones that, they slash back and forth and they throw a lot of water. And that's what I caught a few on in practice, but I honestly never made it happen in the tournament. So I think I still have some things to learn from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I think one thing that people overlook, especially on Blueback Lake, is boat draw when you're fishing a big tournament. So yeah. I was with you on the first day, and you were I think we were boat 100 out of 102.
Yeah.
So those points that are covered up in fish, you're not going to get. Like, he straight told me, I was like, I'm looking for, we might see some blue. He's like, we're not going to get it on the good blueback stuff because we're boat 100. And I was like, oh, and you really see it when you're out there, because it's a mad race on those first 40 so boats to get those good points where those fish are really on there and they're doing their thing. And then, kind of behind that, you have to plan around that. But, you found what you found, and obviously it worked, because the day I was with you, you upgraded, because we had a 4:30 check-in for being so late. At like 4, you caught like a 4 and some change, and made a huge difference on the first day. But
right.
Kind of seeing how you broke that down and did things different because you had to. And then riding with an angler the second day who had a blueback herring bite day 1, it kind of went away day 2, and they spent a lot of the day kind of scrambling, trying to figure something out.
Yeah. On day 2, I went to some different areas to start the day that I kind of figured would be covered up on day 1, because I was such a late boat draw, and it panned out in the morning. I caught a couple decent ones, 3+ pounders, and then I went kind of back to my drop shot deal in the afternoon. But yeah, the boat draw is a big deal, which I kind of, it's just one of those unfortunate things with a blueback lake. You deal with it, and but on the order flips around the next day, and so you get another opportunity at it.
Man, I can imagine being boat 100 and being like, dude. So let's talk about that real quick. How do you, and this is a huge topic I always talked about, but really nobody tells you how to do it because each individual is so different. But when it comes to the mental part of it, when you're thinking about, okay, I know I'm boat 100 out of 104, 103, what does that do to your mental state, and how do you stay in the game and not spin out?
Yeah, for me, what I've learned is, if I let it get to me, that's not helping me, right? So, it's working against me if I let it get inside my head. So that to me allows me to really not worry about it so much. And a lot of guys they got wigged out with that boat draw deal. And for me, it was kind of like, whatever, I'm going to get in where I can. And fortunately, I had a kind of a backup, or it actually was kind of my primary deal was fit. I just catch them on a drop shot more in the afternoon. So I didn't really spin out about the boat draw. But going back to that first tournament on the St. Johns River of my elite career, when I did spin out, I saw how that affected my performance, and I told myself I'd never do that again. No matter how tough it was or whatever the conditions were. And that happens a lot in our tournaments late in the day. You're having a tougher day, nothing's panning out, you're bouncing around, it hasn't come together, but you got to keep faith that at some point you're going to run into them. And it's kind of like that with the boat draw. At some point throughout the day, even though you're boat 100, if you keep your head in it and you keep moving, chances are good at some point you're going to run into them. And like Pete was saying, I caught a 4 3/4 at whatever it was, 3:30, 4 o'clock. And,
Wow.
And that fish, bumped me way up in the standings and was a big reason to make the cut there at Murray. So keeping your head in it is a big deal. And, sometimes the later in the day that it gets, if it hasn't happened yet, that's okay. Like, that just means you've eliminated a lot of water. You're trying to make the right adjustments. And you got to keep that mentality. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, but you got to keep that mentality that at some point I'm going to run across them at some point today.
Yeah, I think a lot of anglers forget that they're fishing against nature and not 103 other anglers at the same time. Like, you're fishing against a live animal, and sometimes they beat you, and that's okay that they beat you. But, like we hear, positive mental attitude, we hear adversity, we hear all these things. And so each one of us deals with it differently, but I think it's important. And dealing with it differently, are you a routine type of guy? Do you have a Bob Downey morning routine, certain underwear you like to wear type deal?
I would say I definitely have a bit of a routine in the morning. I don't like to be super rushed. I like to get there at least an hour before blast off and kind of get my ducks in a row and get settled in. But I'm not superstitious about wearing certain things and that sort of deal. But I definitely, thinking about it, I do have a little bit of a routine for sure. And the biggest thing is just kind of not being in a rush, being able to settle in, kind of calm my mind before blast off, and then once we go, it's go time.
Are you a go to bed at 8 o'clock type guy, or are you one of those that likes to burn the town down?
No, I mean, I'd love to get to bed at 8 o'clock, but I never do. It's usually more like 9:30, 10, 10:30 sort of deal. Yeah.
What's your rooming situation look like? Are you rolling solo, or you got a group that you're with?
I camp in a truck camper, so I roll solo, and there's usually 10, 15 of us at a campground. There's other people that camp as well on tour. So that's what I like to do. I have my own space. I do, I guess, have my own routine that way, and I know where everything is, and it's kind of my home on the road. And that's what's worked for me. I really enjoy it. I feel like my equipment's in a safe place. I don't have to worry about stuff getting stolen. It's relatively inexpensive once you get past the initial investment of the camper itself. But yeah, that's what I enjoy doing.
Banana in the boat or no banana?
I eat a banana most mornings before tournament.
See, there you go, Pete. Pete doesn't even like the color yellow next to his even though we have these lucky Hobie ducks right here that we've carried all tournament season long for the Fishers and Men, which seem to be very lucky. I don't know if it's attributed to that or not, but I'm going to give Hobie all the credit in the world. We got their Hobie ducks, and we're AOI champions, so you're welcome.
Yeah. What is your favorite non-northern fishery to fish?
Non-northern fishery.
Like your favorite where you fish an elite event to this point? What's been your favorite?
Sabine River.
Do not say that.
Man, Gunnersville is always kind of fun in the spring. I don't love Gunnersville when it becomes a ledge tournament. I kind of lack the confidence in some of those ledge events. But I love Gunnersville in the springtime and in the fall. Like when we were there in September, I got to punch grass, which we never really get to do on tour. The Coosa River is pretty cool. It reminds me of the Mississippi River back home. I've had good events both times we've been there. Neely Henry, I really enjoyed it, even though it was quite a tough event. So anytime we can go to some sort of river system, I feel pretty comfortable. Trying to think what other ones. I mean, Grand Lake is kind of an obvious one. But yeah, I'd say that the Tennessee River or the Coosa River are pretty cool places.
Ask the opposite, Pete.
What is your least favorite body of water?
Least favorite
fish that you have fished so far in the elites? I already know the answer.
Not that the host community was bad. Let's get that out there. Like everybody that hosts BASS and all the major national tournament trails, they do a phenomenal
not
job.
The best, most fun fishery in the world.
Yeah. This may come as a surprise, but I really don't love the St. Johns River, even though I've almost won there. I feel like I've maybe got a little better grasp on it the last 2 times we've been there, but that's where I started my career and bombed. And then the next year we went back, I bombed there too. It's a difficult fishery. And Lake Fork, I'm not a huge fan of either.
Wow.
That might be surprising too. I think we've been there 4 times and I've only made the cut once. For whatever reason, I can't seem to click with that place. The one time I made the cut there, it was a post-spawn event, and I kind of caught them how I like to catch them flipping wood. But that place has kind of got my number too. A lot of people love that place, but it gets a ton of pressure, and this year it really showed out. It was kind of on fire, but it's kind of a low density, but high quality type fishery. Yeah. So it's definitely not as easy as the weights make it look.
Yeah. Tidal fisheries. St. John's is a tidal fishery, correct?
St. John's is tidal. The Sabine River is tidal. I think those are my only 2 tidal river experiences. I haven't, for whatever reason, fished any of the ones on the East Coast yet. Our schedule just hasn't gone there since I've been on the Elite Series. So
it's usually the opens like in the James River or the upper Chesapeake. It's been a long time since the Elites have gone like the upper Chesapeake, I think.
Yeah, but isn't the opens heading up to your neck of the woods and going to what is it, Leech Lake this year?
Leech Lake. Yeah.
Are you gonna fish that one?
No, I'm not. We just get back from our last event out in New York, so I'm not going to fish that one. But I live about an hour and a half from there. But I haven't fished it but 2 days in my entire life because I
really
didn't grow up where I live now. I grew up in the Twin Cities metro area of Minnesota, about 4 hours south of Leech Lake. And there's just so many lakes in Minnesota that you don't need to drive 4 hours to go fish. And so I volunteered for a high school event there last year, and that's the only 2 days I've spent on that lake. But it's a cool lake. It's going to be a really interesting one to follow because there's good smallmouth in there now. And that was not the case, I'd say 8 to 10 years ago. So the smallmouth are really booming, and Historically, it would take 20-pound bags of largemouth to win there, but we'll see how that all plays out now. It's going to be a super interesting event to follow to see if smallmouth can win over the course of 3 days, or if you're going to have a mixed bag.
Yeah. My final question for you, brother, is you talked about the opens being the gauntlet, right? And I think this is a pretty normal question a lot of times for the Elite Series anglers. Fast forward or rewind, 4 years ago when you were fishing the opens. What are your thoughts on all 9 now for the EQs? I have my own personal opinions. I think it's great. I think it sets these guys up logistically, and it gets them all over the country. Granted, the schedule is absolutely brutal, and they're fishing against 225. Well, really 500, right? Because you got co-anglers and that, depending on if they get a full co-angler field, which they don't. But what are your thoughts on the having to fish all 9 EQs in order to qualify for the elites now?
Yeah, I can tell you if that were the case when I tried to do it, I wouldn't have even entered. Like, it just wouldn't have been a possibility for me. So I kind of have a soft spot for the guys that, can't take 9 weeks off to do it. On the flip side, I understand why they did it. You're seeing it in the rookie class this year. They're well groomed. They're ready for the Elite Series. They're competing at a high level right out of the gate. So I fully understand why they did it. I don't know if it'll be a sustainable model. We'll see. There's probably always going to be another 50, 60, 70 guys coming out of college that want to try and do it. But I just know from experience, if you do that and you don't succeed at it, it's tough to want to get back up and keep doing it, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a row. So how long that 9 event schedule and how sustainable it is, we'll see. I know the EQ numbers dropped by like 20 or 30 guys this year versus what it was last year. So me personally, what I would like to see is 2 divisions, and I'd like to see 5 tournaments in each division. And I think that would be, 5 would still give you a really good set of anglers that I think are ready to compete. You can't just get lucky in 6 days, like when it used to be 3 tournaments. I think 5 would still be a good sample size, but it would also be doable for the working person too. So
that's a great outlook on that.
That's kind of what it would mean Bass would have to shell out expenses for 1 more tournament because you'd have 10 total instead of 9. But that's what I think would be a happy medium, and it would allow guys that are, maybe in their upper 20s or 30, they're maybe have a family, but they still want to take a shot at doing it. And that's kind of, that was me. That's kind of was my situation.
I kind of like that idea too, because with 5, with 2 divisions, you can still spread the lakes across the country. Well, I'm sure the divisions would be probably broken up regional, but have a diverse set of fisheries, right? Not just like when it used to be like a Florida lake, a Tennessee River lake, and maybe the James River. For like that, whatever that they called that division, like there was no experience going up to smallmouth fisheries, right?
Yeah.
Up north. So that would make a lot of sense, and I think guys would be well prepared.
You didn't hear from Bob, but you heard it from us. Bass, go ahead and let's try that model.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just my opinion. I do think they're doing the guys a good service that are coming out of the opens right now. I mean, they're ready to go. You're seeing a little bit different clientele coming out. I mean, I think your age group and your average age is going to get a lot younger because there's only so many people in their mid 30s that can do that, or are willing to do that. But you got a lot of, guys coming out of college that have a year or 2 before they maybe want to jump into the working world where they can maybe wing it. And see
that's the thing. Like when you're young, you're willing to take those risks. You're willing to grind it out. You're willing to, you don't have a family yet, probably. And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And by the time you're in your, mid 30s, early 40s, you got to be career wise in a position where you can go off and take the time off and spend away from your family. And so it's
I just want to mop
younger man's game.
Is there a job opening for mopping the floor?
I've got one more question, but Ben, do you have anything?
No, I've asked all mine. Yeah.
My last question is an easy and fun one, and then we'll give you a chance to shout out your socials, all your sponsors that make it possible for you to be able to chase that dream and continue to do it.
The OneCast.
But the one question I have is, if you could go out on a tournament day and tell the fish what to bite, what technique are you throwing?
Beetle spin.
It'd be a toss-up between throwing a frog or punching grass mats. Probably.
Oh,
that's perfect.
Yeah,
that's good.
I mean,
that's good.
Probably punching. That's just I just love doing that. It's close quarter combat, and no, you don't need electronics, and it's just fishing how I grew up fishing, and I just love doing that.
CQC, little close quarter combat. I like that terminology.
There's just something about him smoking a frog.
It's I
mean,
CQB, close quarter bassin.
Well, yeah, close quarter bassin. That's funny. I actually, back in the day when I was trying to get into social media, I was like, hey, babe, my wife, obviously, can you create me a logo that says CQB, close quarter bassin? It was so lame, but close quarter combat, I like that term. And I do have another question for you. I do this every episode. Every episode. So you're welcome again. What is your least favorite bait to throw and why?
Is it the wacky worm?
No.
I actually don't hate the wacky worm. I think it's an incredibly effective bait at times. Least favorite.
Jighead minnow.
Yeah. I would say probably I like throwing it, but I hate the hook to land ratio, and that's a spy bait.
Oh, there's a first, Bob. That's the first one we've ever heard.
I throw it more now than I ever have because I have kind of understood its effectiveness, but I about have a heart attack when I hook a giant on it in a tournament because you just never know if they're coming in the boat or not.
Yeah, those little baby treble hooks and
Well, I appreciate you sending me a box of them because I don't own a single one. Is it Rapala or Rapala?
It's Rapala for me.
Boom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob. Everyone else was wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
You guys not.
I'm still saying how I'm saying it because that's how I heard it growing up years ago.
My dad was when he was around, he would throw the Rapala. He would say, I don't remember what the actual like nomenclature was, but it was the floating jerk bait because
Rapala floating minnow.
Yeah, we fished it in Michigan, and then he moved up to Cambria, Wisconsin. And he would just twitch that thing on the top of the water. He tried coming down here in North Carolina, and he got burned hard because I was like, I ain't gonna eat that right now, dude. Yeah. You're gonna have to throw a wacky worm.
So, Bob, we're a little over an hour. I know you've got a young family. You're probably trying to spend time and get as much sleep as you can with a fairly newborn at home.
Soak it up.
So why don't you take the next couple minutes to, let everybody know where they can follow you on socials. We will also link those down below for everybody that's listening and watching. I think you have like a Beat Bob tournament going on right now with one of your sponsors. You can plug that if you want. And then obviously the companies that support you, that you're partnered with, that let you do this for a living.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay active on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is Bob Downey Fishing, and then Instagram is just my name, Bob Downey, with an underscore at the end of it. And then, like Pete said, there's a virtual tournament going on starting here in a couple days. It'll go June 1st through August 31st, so it's quite long, 3 months long. All Terrain Tackle is jig company. They're actually my longest standing sponsor. I've started working with them back in high school. So it's cool to still be working with them, and they're putting out a virtual tournament. there's several categories on how to win. You can go to their social media and kind of see all the different categories. The main one is your longest 3 fish throughout that 3-month period. So long time to stack up your 3 longest ones. Anyone in North America can compete. And the grand prize is you got to beat me. If your 3 biggest are bigger than mine, you get put into a drawing for a day on the lake with me, plus some all-terrain tackle prizes. So check it out. It starts here in a couple days.
What lake does that recipient get to fish with you on?
Yet to be determined. We'll have to figure that out.
It is. Bob, I got to tell you, so you're a new dad, which congratulations on that, man. That's
Thank you.
huge, it's a privilege, and you're gonna enjoy every minute of it. Oh, well, not every minute. You're not gonna enjoy every minute, but have you started working on your dad jokes yet?
No, but I probably ought to get going on that.
You got to get going, Bob. Here's a great one for you, man. What is black and white and has 16 wheels?
Black and white has 16 wheels. Semi truck.
Well, that's a great guess. It's a zebra on roller skates. So you got to really get into the dad joke.
Oh God.
Let the man shout a sponsor.
That doesn't even count.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Bob knows like dad jokes. Listen, I've been telling dad jokes, and eventually you'll go from laughs to the eye rolling.
Yeah.
Right.
You didn't even get laughs this time.
I just walk out of the room when it starts.
You know what? These guys, they have no context behind it, so it's fine. But anyways, I don't want to interrupt your sponsor shout out. I just had to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, I'm just appreciative of all the companies that I've worked with. I won't sit and name them all, but I'm just very thankful for the relationships, and they took a chance on me right away after qualifying through the opens when I had, 0 experience on a national level. And it's just been really cool to kind of build those relationships with them. Most everyone that I started working with 5 years ago, I'm still working with today. So I appreciate them taking a chance on me, and I look forward to continuing to work with them here in the future.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Well, Bob, stay on the line real quick because we're going to close this bad boy out.
Yeah, we're going to do a little outro and then just hang out for a minute, and we'll catch up real quick offline, and then we'll let you go back about your business. So,
yeah,
sounds good.
Folks at home, we appreciate you listening. Make sure you check out Bob's socials. You'll see all the companies that he works with. So, throw them support. If you don't already, I know the companies Rapala, Sim. I said that. Did I say that right?
Rapala.
Yeah. Rapala Sims and a bunch of other ones. Make sure you check them out. We all love those companies. We use their gear. I know there's a lot of new stuff coming out. I've seen Bob tease some new baits. I saw a few other of the Rapala guys tease some new baits. So they've got some new stuff coming. The new soft plastics, the Crush City stuff, I have used a few of them, and I like them a lot. The Bronco bug gets bit. Like, I had a lot of fun flipping around that bait this spring. So check them out. Make sure you check out all of our sponsors. We say it every episode. I'm not going to go through them again. If you haven't entered our giveaway, make sure you do. We still have, by the time this episode comes up, we will have already drawn the 3rd month. So you've got 2 more months to go. So head over to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called now. Wherever you listen, leave a review, screenshot it, send it to us on social media. We'll get you entered. We still got a couple great prize packs, including a 40-pound box of jigs. So make sure you check that out. There's details all over our socials on that too. So we appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate Bob coming to join us. I had a ton of fun getting to ride around and watch him fish that day, learn some stuff. And he's definitely a good ambassador for the sport, and somebody that we hope to have back on and help us continue to grow that culture of anglers helping anglers one cast at a time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.